And welcome back to Let's Get Tenure. We have quite the little situation going on. We have some pasture ailments or plagues or tuberculosis, something that's not good. And I thought it would be a good video to kind of have a little walk around the city. So we actually have a couple things going on. It's here 175. We are no longer at the bottom of the population wave, so we're climbing out of it. And on the right-hand side, you can kind of see the distribution of professions. You can compare that to the last video and see how things have changed. And we're going to talk about food a little bit later and how that decision-making process works. But really quickly, I want to show you this trick. So we have 3 pastures that are infected. They're all sheep pastures, and I've set them all to 0 now. So what this is doing is telling the herdsman to kill all the sheep, right? So even though we're at a food, uh, we have the maximum amount of food that we can have. This is still going to kind of get the workers to do what they're supposed to do. But then up here at the top, we have this empty pasture. And so what this does is kind of provides an overflow. So as soon as the first infection started, we split the population of sheep as many times as we could. We put as many as we could up here in this empty pasture. And now we're just going to kind of wait, click play, and wait until this pasture here allows us to kind of empty. And it's really all there is to it. It's fairly simple. I see a lot of people that try to diversify their pastures so that you can see it just happens. We're gonna click empty. Now we're gonna hit pause. We're gonna go up to the top. We're gonna click empty. So now this pasture in the middle is no longer infected. And now we're going to go to this pasture and click empty, hit play. And now this pasture is no longer infected. We go up to the top, we click empty. We go back down here to this pasture, we click empty, we click play. Now that pasture is no longer infected. We turn the sliders back up to full populations. Then we go back up to the top. We click empty, lower that to 0, turn that off, and then we disable the worker. And that is kind of as difficult as dealing with a pasture infection as it is. The key is to just build a pasture out in the middle of nowhere, as close to the edge of the map as possible, and it's your overflow pasture. But I'm kind of glad that this happened because while I'm here, I can see that my tailors are not working. And that's not a great thing. I mean, I can see I have 1,300 textiles. So one of the things that we're going to want to do is go and look and see why it is that my tailors aren't working. What textile don't we have? Is it wool? Is it leather? So that's one thing we're going to look at. We're also going to go look at the food distribution. So in the last video, we talked about these 6 trading posts that you can see on the screen right now, and how, let's see what they have, all cattle. So these trading posts are now trading corn. This one here actually is doing nothing. It's just an overflow. But these guys are trading corn and ale to kind of distribute the total number of food items, right? So I'm buying corn. So as a very quick example, in this bottom trading post right here, I am purchasing corn here. I'm purchasing wheat. In these 3 at the top, I'm selling corn and I'm selling wheat. So it's a very easy way to make a purchase and then immediately turn around and sell that purchase to get more fruit producing ales. And at this point in time, my surplus of ale is 6,300, so it's still a very healthy surplus. My food surplus is over 1 million, and let's just go look and see what that line looks like. So it's been consistently up at the top if we look at 100 years, but let's just simplify this and look at 10 years. So over 10 years, you can see that there have been dips. We have dipped down. The top line is a million. This bottom line is about 780,000. So these low points are, I don't know, 900,000, 880,000. They're somewhere in that middle range. And what I want to impress upon you at this point is when you have a good, generous surplus of food, your productivity is going to kind of fluctuate and go up and down. So what you want to do is set a minimum number in your head. What I mean is that right now my food is at 1,035,000. So if my food starts to drop to 980, 950, 925,000, I'm not even going to bat an eye. I'm not even going to pay attention to that drop unless it gets below 750,000 food. So if it drops from a million to 860,000, I'm not going to make any decisions on that. I want to see more data. I want to see more time. So one of the really good things to learn in this game is that if you look at the last video and you look at the distribution of labor that I had, how many hunters I had, how many fishermen I had, how many foresters I had, you'll see that those numbers have changed, but all of the other numbers have stayed consistently the same. And so by reducing the number of gatherers, hunters, fishers, fishermen rather, foresters that I've had, I've obviously changed the total output of my city, but what I want you to understand is that you really need to kind of wait several years to see what that impact is. So if we look at this overall food line over the last 10 years, you can, or let's just go to 25 years, you can see that there really is no change. So even though I've reduced the number of people I have in food producing jobs, it really has had no impact on my overall food. Now I let's look at population really quickly. So here you can see that, like I said, we're coming out of the low point of the population wave. So we're growing at this point. And if we're growing, that means I have some laborers that I could put into other jobs. Now, because of the fact that my food is pretty static, this again kind of goes back to the point of gatherers being your lowest food producer or your lowest importance. So I can put 25 or 50 people into my fishing docks and my hunting cabins because I'm essentially trying to trade 100% of the food that those jobs produce in my trading posts. So all they're going to do is just add to my wealth in that equation. Whereas a gatherer is really just going to get me to my 1 million cap quicker. And when we get to that gap, or that cap rather, things kind of shut down. So for example, let's look at coats, uh, clothing. So clothing is pretty volatile. And the fact is that I'm not producing enough coats for my citizens with the 10 tailors that I have. And we just a minute ago talked about how it seems the tailors are idle because they don't have either wool or leather that we're going to look at here. But one of the real problems here is that because I'm over a million food, my herdsmen are not slaughtering animals because they don't need the food. So I'm really limited in the amount of wool. I really suspect it's wool that I'm lacking. Uh, and I'm just not producing enough wool at this point. So one of the ways we've offset that, and you've seen it in other videos, is we have trading posts that are bringing wool in. On the other hand, I mean, it looks like our stored tools are at a lower number. And if we look at the graph, that isn't supported. The tools are a very straight line. In all of a sudden a drop, and this drop is because I've started putting them into my last store or trading post. So if we go down here, you can see I have another 1750 tools just sitting there, and I'm sorry, 1750 warm coats, 980 steel tools. I think I'm getting that up to, let's see, so it's going up to 1,000. So this is the most recent thing I've put in here. So the thing to take away here is that we're purchasing coats to offset this deficit, but we're still continuing to make as many steel tools as I possibly could need in this city, and I'm doing it with only 3 blacksmiths. So, I think that really speaks volumes to the differences in terms of efficiencies between blacksmith and tailors. Uh, and if we go back in here and we look at the trade value, you can see that steel tools obviously are trading at 1/2 of the warm coats. So that seems to be somewhat of a justified kind of variance. Uh, Having said that, let's go ahead and just look into the town hall. I'm kind of curious. It's been a while since I've moved around and taken an overview. So we have 99% clothed, 100% educated, everybody's healthy, everybody's happy. Total population just shy of 1,200. Moving over to the inventory tab, let's look at the distribution. So we have plum and pear are our top food items. That's really great. That tells me that I really should be going around to my taverns. For example, cherries are kind of at the bottom here. Apples are at the bottom. So anybody making apple or cherry ale probably should be making plum or pear ale, or at least a fair amount of them. So we have pecans. Pecans are really high on the list, and I just started stocking pecans in this manual trading, or no, I didn't. So the manual trading post has chestnuts, and now, just give me a second. We'll go ahead and throw 10,000 pecans here. So this trading post here, just to level set, this trading post here is my last trading post. It's my only manual trading post. So we're not purchasing anything. And the reason that I'm saying that is I think a lot of people get intimidated by trade because, on this map, I have 114 traders. So I have trading posts all over the map. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not looking at any of them. I'm not paying attention to any of them. I have them all set up to do things automatically for me. And the only one that kind of matters is this one here. So this one here is going to be getting various surpluses. So if I have more pecans or chestnuts and I want to just I want to level things out a bit, that's where this trading post is going to become important. So when my steel tools get too high, I'm going to put them in here and I'm just going to trade them off. Even though, in the case of warm coats, I might be purchasing a warm coat from this trading post here, and then turning around and selling it in this trading post here, and I'm sorry, this one here, and I'm going to be losing some value there. But what this does is it really allows you to kind of easily control your entire city and your entire trade empire, while at the same time only actually paying attention to one single trading post. And you can see I only have 2 traders in this trading post. So it's simultaneously the least important and the most important trading post that I have because it really lets me balance things. Uh, let's just go back to the town hall and see what else we can learn. So our beans are high, that's good. Our pecans are high, cabbage is high, peppers are high. This is a really robust distribution of food. We have tons of vegetables, we have tons of fruit. The fruit is really important because it helps me make ale. The vegetables are really important. It's because it's what I want my people to be primarily consuming. And then interspersed into there, we have some proteins. We do have fish, we do have beef, we do have venison. The beef is very low. Almost all of it is getting traded. The majority of the protein is coming from things like chestnuts and walnuts. I'm kind of curious where fish is. So my fish is at 0. And this goes back to discussing when I said the gatherers were useless, is if I go ahead and I put, let's just go ahead and make fishermen 75 and hunters 75. So these people are now working, they're now producing things, but whatever they produce is just going straight into a trading post because venison and fish are not existent in my marketplaces. And what this allows me to do is just continue and perpetually purchase more vegetables and more fruits and more proteins and more grains. You can see wheat is now at the bottom of this list, which is good. That's telling me maybe I should stop selling it in some of my trading posts. Let's see where corn is. Corn is at 0, so we have effectively destroyed our grain populations. If you look at the previous videos, we had a very high surplus of grains going across the board. And in fact, that's one of the reasons we started selling it in all of these different trading posts. So that money laundering or that distribution mechanism has worked. It has allowed us to sell that grain and wheat. We have obviously purchased more plums, more squash, more pears, more beans. So another thing that I'm maybe thinking about doing at this point is maybe building some more taverns. So if we go into the alcohol tab, and we can see it's quite a erratic up and down line, which is what you'd expect because of how much we're trading alcohol. But one of the things I want to make sure of, I want to make sure that my people are not eating all the fruit before it's made into ale, which then lets me buy more food. So, with 67 free people, uh, and these fishermen and hunters that I don't even need, building another 10 taverns kind of sounds like a good idea at this point. If we look at the inventory, a couple new marketplaces, maybe marketplaces and taverns, that doesn't sound like a bad idea. On the other hand, we probably want to start taking squash and maybe cabbage and bean and trading it for fruit, right? So if I could take those and trade them for cherry and apple, and even peaches, that would be good. I mean, just overall, that would be good. Um, but I think a video like this is probably not a bad idea. I've tried to make it a couple times actually. It's more difficult than it sounds because there's so much going on when you're at year 175 with a population of this size. I mean, this for those of you who don't know, you can go into the I think it's right here. You can go into this menu option right here, it's the camera angle, and you can save a map position. So for example, this is my home position right now. And I really don't do anything but sit here at the screen and look to see what traders are bringing me to these 6 trading posts. Uh, I can see my coal is getting low. I have a lot of traders that are auto trading for coal, so I kind of find that surprising. But it's really simple for me just to go into here. God, I'm gonna have to do some math on the fly here. That's not gonna be fun. Is that 12? Was that 1050? Look at that. So, I mean, it's easy for me just to go and buy 600 coal. Boom. Don't have a problem. Out of there. I can go into here. I don't need cattle or chicken. Moving on. The reason that I'm staying here at this home screen is because these 6 traders are the ones that I'm still configuring, right? So I'm going into these traders. I'm disabling the grains and the proteins from their not their auto purchasing, but I'm disabling it from their orders. So these guys are just bringing in as many fruits and vegetables as they can. All of my other traders are still bringing in grains, they're still bringing in proteins. So, when I finally kind of reach a tipping point, what I'm going to be able to do very easily is go into these ones here and then just disable the purchasing of certain items, or I'm going to be able to just take out the corn, take out the wheat, and kind of take a pause or a break from money laundering, as a central concept. So for the most part, it's just a matter of sitting here at this screen waiting for new traders to come in. If you get a fire, you zoom in, there's nothing for you to do. You watch your citizens put it out, you rebuild. If you get a tornado, you watch it destroy your city, you pause the game, you disable 125 foresters, you make a big withdrawal, you take out your stone from your banks, and you rebuild. And, that's kind of all it becomes. I can see how some people might find that boring or how they don't like this end game content because there's not enough to do. Personally, I find it to be a very relaxing game. I enjoy playing it like this. It's kind of ironic I haven't gotten over 200 years with as many hours as I've played, but it's been a bit of a journey, and I can say this is one achievement that you really have to kind of earn, in my opinion. So if you are interested in that, take some of the tips that I've put out on this channel to heart. Nothing sucks more than getting to year 175 and having your city destroyed by a tornado because you don't have a bank. Uh, I really think closing. I have a hard time with that word. In closing, I think Banished has some sort of a script where it knows what you want. So if you want a shipment of stone to come in on a trading boat, you will not get stone. You will have 10 shipments in a row and there will be no stone. If you want a tornado, if you're prepared for a tornado, you're going to get nothing but pasture infections, little fires, and maybe tuberculosis. It purposefully tries to ignore your wants to just make it a fun game. And I like that. So cheers, and we'll talk to you soon when we get to 200.